This webinar is co-hosted by FishChoice and the Global Seafood Alliance. Our first webinar to explore how the two organisations are working together to support the advancement of fishery improvement projects around the globe. My name is Ian Schoen, representing the Global Seafood Alliance based in the United Kingdom. I will be moderating today's event. Presenting, we're delighted to have Kristin Sherwood from FishChoice based in Spain, from Global Seafood Alliance, David Dietz, based at head office in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And in the interest of time, I'll kindly ask if the presenters themselves can give any further introductions they wish. At last count, we had nearly 300 registrants for this webinar. Everyone will get sent access to a recording. So if any of your colleagues haven't been able to join, they can catch up at another time. Throughout the webinar, we invite questions via the chat box, and we should have plenty of time for Q&A, and we will do our best to answer as many as we can. And just to say that all participants will be muted, and thank you for joining us today. Our agenda is to explain why FishChoice and the Global Seafood Alliance have established this partnership. We'll have an update from Kristin on the latest FishChoice activities. David will go into the toolbox that Global Seafood Alliance has to support FIPs. Then our moderated Q&A session before a quick review of some forthcoming events, and then we will close. Global Seafood Alliance and FishChoice signed a memorandum of understanding late last year with the objective of providing greater assurances for FIPs. The Global Seafood Alliance has a long track record in harnessing the positive power of supply chain development, and it was felt that this approach would benefit FIPs themselves and the marketplace. By utilising the Global Seafood Alliance's seafood processing standard, assurances can be developed in food safety, environmental management, and social responsibility for FIP supply chains. The intent is to add value, assurances, and sourcing integrity to FIPs and FIP products being processed and distributed to existing and new markets. The Global Seafood Alliance also runs the Responsible Fishing Vessel Standard, which can also facilitate improvement above water and in the social space. So, to learn more on how the two organisations will develop and implement this MOU, I will first of all hand over to Kristin from FishChoice. Kristin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ian. And yes, my name is Kristin Sherwood. I'm the program director at an organization called FishChoice. And first of all, just a huge thank you to GSA for pulling this presentation together today and for being the initiator of this cool collaboration. It's been really fun to get to know the GSA team better and to really start unpacking this exciting project. So I thought today I would get us started by giving the folks on the call a little bit of a orientation to the organization that I work for, which is called FishChoice. I think I may know some of you, but probably not all of you. So I figured it would be a good opportunity just to give a little context and background to help this partnership make some sense. So for those of you who don't know us, FishChoice is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to build online platforms that power progress on sustainable seafood. Overall, our tools make it easier for businesses to find and use the information they need to buy and sell sustainable seafood. So right now we run 2 platforms, the ones you see on the screen now, FishChoice.com and Fishery Progress. So we're here to talk about Fishery Progress, but I will say that I'd love to connect on FishChoice.com as well with some of you later this year. We're rebuilding and really retooling that platform. But let's dig into Fishery Progress. So FIPs, or Fishery Improvement Projects, as we know and love them, they gained momentum in the early part of the 2010s as the demand for sustainable seafoods really started to climb. As the seafood industry became more interested in seafood sustainability, FIPs became really important because industry wanted to meet their sustainability commitments. So the challenge that companies were really facing at that stage was that it was hard to find consistent, reliable, trustworthy information on FIP products. And given that need, Fishery Progress, the website, was created. So for just about 8 years now, Fishery Progress has been the one-stop shop for reliable information about progress of global FIPs. And we're really proud that we have more than 90% of the world's fishery improvement projects reporting on the website now. And within that group, it's a total of about 262 FIPs, and they represent 90 countries. In terms of representation, we have close to a third of the FIPs focused on tuna, and the other large species groups include crab and lobsters, whitefish, shrimp, large pelagics, and mollusks and echinoderms. In terms of usership of Fishery Progress, we have about 40% of our users are from industry, and we have in total over 5,000 registered users, and others, of course, are FIP implementers, nonprofit organizations, government, consultants, and so forth. So let's talk about why the site is useful. So first of all, it is a data transparency platform, and all the information before it's published on the site is reviewed by our team internally at Fishery Progress. So it's carefully looked at to make sure it's consistent and credible before it's published. So first thing, everything is reviewed. Second of all, FIP information, all of FIP progress is measured against a single common yardstick, and that's the MSC standard, which just means that FIP progress is comparable across the board. You can compare a FIP to a FIP to a FIP. Third, all FIPs have to stay up to date. They have to report on their progress every 6 months. So that means you go to the website and you can be confident that information is up to date and accurate and so forth. Next point is that the Fishery Progress is open to FIPs of various sizes and types. You'll find small-scale fisheries as well as large industrial fisheries on the website. And finally, for now at least, Fishery Progress is free for its users. We are funded through private foundations, and so it's free, it's open access to anyone who wants to use it. So I'm going to just get into a little bit of detail around both the environmental and social requirements on Fishery Progress, and I'll start us off with environmental. So once a FIP is listed on Fishery Progress, they have then committed themselves to reporting on their progress on their work plans every 6 months. So every 6 months, they have to update what they've actually done in their work plans. And then every year, the FIP has to provide updated MSC performance indicator scores, as well as an updated budget. So that's once a year. And whenever a FIP claims that they've made progress, whether it's an action or a change in the indicator scores, that claim has to be backed up by evidence. So it's not enough for a FIP just to say we've done something. They also have to provide documented evidence to prove it. And on the website, you can see all of that evidence transparently. So finally, on the environmental side, FIPs also have to conduct an independent evaluation every 3 years. So that means that it's a third-party review outside of Fishery Progress that reviews the environmental actions that the FIP has claimed on the website. And just as a reminder, like I said before, all data on the website is reviewed by our team at Fishery Progress before it's made live. So that's a little bit of like what a FIP signs up for on the environmental side of Fishery Progress. Let's dig into social just a little bit here. So as you probably recognize, the FIP model was originally focused on environmental sustainability. That's how it was created. But over the past few years, as we've all learned a lot more about human rights and social responsibility, the FIP model has also begun to integrate social responsibility into its mandate. And just a little history of our engagement around social responsibility. In 2019, the middle of 2019, we received an allegation of a human rights abuse going on at a FIP that's reporting on fishery progress, and everything else about that FIP looked stellar. It was an A-rated FIP, comprehensive, et cetera. And so it was a big warning bell for us that fishery progress plays a really important role in offering market access to fisheries, but we can't sit back and rest on those laurels. We really have to think about the social responsibility layer as well. So we worked hard and fast that year to put together an interim policy that covered just allegations, and then spent quite a bit of time consulting with our stakeholders over the course of the next 18 months or so. And then in 2021, we launched a comprehensive human rights and social responsibility policy that requires FIPs on fishery progress to begin to tackle social issues and embed them into their work. And so I'm really, really proud to say that today all FIPs that are public on fishery progress have to share some information related to their social performance according to the requirements set out on our policy. So let me tell you a little bit more about how that works. So our social responsibility policy is set up as a series really of tiered requirements based on the amount of risk that the fisheries are operating within. So all FIPs have to meet the 5 basic requirements that you see on the left side of the screen. They have to demonstrate they have a public policy outlining a commitment to respect human and labor rights. They have to provide information on vessels or fishers in the FIP. They have to ensure that fishers understand their rights. And they also have to have a grievance mechanism for reporting abuses. So these are just the basic fundamentals that all fisheries have to provide evidence to support. FIPs also have to complete a self-evaluation of risk, which will help us understand whether that fishery is operating within the context of higher risk for forced labor or human trafficking. That self-evaluation includes questions like, does the fishery include at-sea transshipment, a significant foreign migrant workforce, or trips where fishers aren't allowed on shore at least every 90 days? So FIPs, once we understand whether the fishery is operating within a context of higher risk, then we know that fishery has to take on additional requirements. So you see that little yellow hexagon and what it leads to. Those FIPs, which I'll tell you is about 40% of the fisheries on fishery progress, have to then conduct a comprehensive risk assessment. And if the risk assessment shows issues, they have to create a work plan and then report on that work plan in the very same way that I described the environmental requirements in a few slides ago. So that's how it works. And fisheries can do this voluntarily as well. So you see that green hexagon. Fisheries can choose, even if they're not operating in a context of higher risk, that does not mean they're risk-free. So a number of fisheries on the website have started to do this work voluntarily, which is really very exciting. So I will tell you that these requirements started to hit last year, and all FIPs have completed their self-evaluation, which is exciting. About 90% of them have uploaded vessel lists, and about 70% have shared grievance mechanisms, and that will just continue to increase. We have learned that this process is not easy. FIPs have to raise money to do this work. They have to find the expertise to be able to do this work. So the process of completing our requirements has taken a little longer than expected. And so FIPs have requested extensions to be able to do this. So we'll see these numbers start to pick up over time as funds and capacity begin to increase. That is a little look at social. And so before I close up, I'm just going to share a little bit about, really how fishery progress works with buyers. Our site is only valuable if FIPs are on the website and actively reporting both their environmental and social progress. And if buyers don't insist that FIPs report and make progress, our platform really can't deliver its value. And nor can we engage in partnerships like the one we're going to talk about today. So the thing that we ask businesses, likely some of the ones on this call today, is to help create incentives for FIPs to make progress and meet their end goals. You can, commit publicly to FIPs reporting that they'll only source from FIPs that report on fishery progress and demonstrate both environmental and social progress. It would be great to communicate your company's expectations of suppliers of FIP product. In other words, you expect on time and accurate reporting, including human rights and social responsibility. And actively monitor and engage with FIPs to encourage their progress. So you can financially contribute, should financially contribute to the FIPs that you source from, and actually support activities in their work plans, reach out and congratulate them on their progress, or encourage more action when that's needed. So really deep engagement from buyers is a great way to help FIPs continue to kind of stay in that space of momentum towards end goals. So that's just a little request to folks on the call. And just to tee up this partnership with GSA, FIPs have not been a deep part of the traceability dialogue to date, but it really is exciting and time for that to start to change. As you know, many buyers rely on FIP product, and they should know where that seafood is coming from. They should know that it's actually coming from a credible FIP. So we are really excited to partner with GSA to kind of keep this work going and to get these pilot projects started. We really feel like by combining the SPS, the seafood processing standard, with regular reporting on fishery progress, that suppliers are going to be able to demonstrate their products are traceable back to FIPs, reporting on both environmental and social progress. So we think that's really exciting. So this is a good time to leave it here, and I will transition to the next part of the presentation. Thanks, everybody.
Kristin, thank you. Thank you for that insight and overview. You, not surprisingly, stop at the perfect point for us to hand straight over to David to expand on the Global Seafood Alliance role here. David, over to you.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, thanks, Kristin. Appreciate that. Morning, afternoon, everyone. My name is David Dietz. I'm the Manager of Standards Oversight for the Global Seafood Alliance. So broadly responsible for guiding standards development across all the GSA certification programs. And so it just kind of really want to briefly summarize GSA's side of this collaboration, where we think the value comes out and how the kind of auxiliary tools and certification programs at GSA can help kind of support this collaboration more broadly. And so after back and forth with FishChoice for a while here, and GSA trying to examine where its most impactful role in the wild capture space could be, we got involved with FishChoice and started talking about fishery improvement projects, and really understood that, as Kristin mentioned, traceability is kind of a next frontier of the sophistication and development of FIPs. And after a lot of back and forth, we realized that the seafood processing standard and the wild capture traceability elements that it already collects during an audit, by folding in just a few more data points related to the FIP profile and certain reporting elements that Kristin mentioned, you can conduct the same traceability verification for Fishery Improvement Project material that you could for any other wild caught material around the world. So what we've realized is that SPS is actually very much fit for purpose as of now to take in things harvested through fishery improvement projects and pass them through an SPS audit and provide a sound traceability assurance to the marketplace, so that you can understand what FIP material you're buying, how much of it, where it came from, and feel a lot more confident about the sourcing of that material overall. And we're really excited to be offering that through the new updated version of Seafood Processing Standard, which is just about done here. And this is the Seafood Processing Standard 6.0. This has been a multi-year redevelopment effort on our end to do a few things. One was to make a much more streamlined and efficient audit process for all seafood processing facilities around the world. And part of that was to make sure that this standard was more applicable to wild capture processors around the world. And a major focus of that was to turn this into a modular approach to facility auditing. So you'll see in the center of this, 6.0 brings together a core set of requirements that any processing facility around the world would be audited against. And these are requirements that any facility would need to be meeting to demonstrate best practice. But above and below this, we see 8 scope-based modules that would apply to facilities based on their operation. So these would be non-optional, but required based on what is done at the facility. So just as for one example, if low acid canning was done on site, then the low acid canned food module would be added into the audit scope. So you get a checklist that's highly catered to the exact specifications of your facility, so that your audit is extremely focused on your operations and you're not left to focus on things that, or be audited against things that aren't actually relevant for your facility. And thinking a little bit about social responsibility specifically, as Kristen mentioned, we're taking a new approach to that as well in SPS 6.0 and providing 2 different options for facilities to demonstrate social assurance and accountability on site. The default option, which would be required for anyone going through at a minimum the SPS 6.0 audit, would be the standard social requirement. And this is a strengthened version of the social clauses that you would find in the previous version, SPS 5.1. However, there's additionally the option now to choose the enhanced social module. So replacing the current social option with enhanced would greatly bolster the size of the requirements within that audit process. This enhanced social framework is written to align with the SSCI, so the Sustainable Supply Chain Initiative Social Accountability Benchmark. All enhanced social module audits would be done unannounced with an audit team approach that would bring in an APSCA registered auditor. And this would additionally include a little bit more audit time to do the comprehensive social assessment. So as we think about, as Kristen mentioned, the greater focus and recognition of social accountability across the seafood supply chain, trying to do our part to make sure that facilities have the option to really work towards and demonstrate really best-in-class practices up and down their operation. I'm thinking about some of the things that sort of support this overall and some auxiliary products and work that we do that will help, we think, intersect with this collaboration with FishChoice. One of which is the Responsible Fishing Vessel Standard. This is a certification standard for any commercial fishing vessel around the world to demonstrate best class crew welfare and worker treatment on board. This is a benchmarked by the Sustainable Supply Chain Initiative. It has been reviewed as being highly complementary and supportive towards the WWF Basket Blueprint for Action. And we've already done some previous assessment work with Fishery Progress and FIPs around the world related to that social risk and accountability tool that Kristen had mentioned. So trying to understand how the Responsible Fishing Vessel Standard could help fit to demonstrate social accountability on fishery improvement projects as well. So we see this as really in a larger ecosystem where you could start adding in and maturing fishery improvement projects to all of the other components beyond just environmental responsibility. And lastly, this is kind of a broader GSA kind of idea that we're working towards, but this will strongly support this collaboration into the future. And that's the role that technology and data is going to be supporting in our process moving forward. We're currently working with Whole Chain to build out a data center that is GS1 compliant, which can take in audit data from any of the standards that we operate or any other programs that we collaborate with, and spit out really concise and consumable data for people who engage with our programs to report out your own responsibility metrics, however you'd like to do so. So we're currently building out this robust data center that will have various levels of integration depending on kind of the level of sophistication of your organization, and bringing in traceability elements like we'd be doing with fishery improvement projects through SPS would be kind of a centerpiece of that, so that supply chain mapping and traceability could be really accessible and front and center for your business operations as well. I think, yes, that concludes my portion. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Brilliant, David. Thank you so much. We now come to the Q&A section of this webinar. I've been doing my best to monitor the questions that excuse me, have come in so far, and I've captured a few. But I'd like to kick off, please, with a question to Kristen, and that is, what kind of FIP is going to be a good candidate to benefit from this development? And perhaps, Kristen, you could touch on whether that depends on the level of market exposure they may have or may not have, any particular size of FIP, or perhaps what development stage a FIP might be at? What are the good candidates that are going to benefit?
Good question, Ian. And I think, I mean, my gut reaction to that is that any FIP on fishery progress would really benefit from work like this, partly because it means exposure and learning of best practice around traceability. It showcases their leadership potentially and really promotes traceability as a part of market expectations. I think in reality, my guess is that FIPs that are further along on their pathway, that are set up for success, that are funded reasonably well, moving down the FIP pathway already, likely are the most ready ones, partly because there's buyers out there that are interested in traceability already that will help drive this. I mean, I think those are probably the FIPs that will be most ready, but fundamentally, I don't think this is an approach that is FIP specific, species specific, size specific. I think all FIPs eventually could really be beneficial to anyone.
Lots of development opportunity.
Yeah.
Good. Now, you touched on this during your presentation. When we look at certified fisheries, trainer custody goes hand in hand with fishery certification. Now, one aim of this partnership is to improve sourcing integrity and transparency for FIPs, which should lead to a number of benefits, both for the FIP and the marketplace. Why is this only just being addressed now?
Another good question, and it's interesting. I feel like we've had conversations about why. Well, when did we start this traceability work for years now, and there just wasn't readiness. I mean, it does really feel like this is a very next logical step in terms of FIP development. We've seen just a really steep increase in the number of FIPs and the market interest in FIPs over the last years. FIPs are becoming more mature and going from the FIP phase into certification. Like, it just feels like the idea of integrating traceability and other advanced pieces of work like social responsibility feel like the really next logical step in terms of FIP development. It is worth saying that FIPs really historically have been coming from some of the most resource and capacity constrained regions of the world. So it hasn't been as logical or as easy for FIPs to kind of enter the traceability conversation as other fisheries. So I think it'll still be a slow burn, because that's still the case, that there are many fisheries are small scale and coming from data and resource constrained situations. But I do think that getting the ball started and beginning to kind of set the tone for market expectations is really important. And frankly, buyers need it. Like, there is just so much more investment in FIPs. Knowing where the FIP product come from just feels really more and more important.
Well, now that leads on to probably one of the most important questions of market support for FIPs then. And Christian, you referred to the importance of buyer public commitments to FIPs. David, if buyers wish to support this development specifically, how can they do that, and what are the asks?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that buyers could be doing to support this at various levels of intensity. I think at the onset, it's just make sure you really understand the FIPs you buy from, and who your partners are and what you're purchasing. And I think the more informed you are as a buyer, the more engaged you can be in this process. And I think in our due diligence here, it's understanding that there's a lot of variability across reporting and understanding of what we're buying from where and when and things like that. So it's starting at that level of just know your FIPs and know where you're buying. But I think at the next step, Kristen mentioned, a lot of FIPs come out of resource constrained parts of the world, and a lot of that resource constraint really gets stacked into the end of the supply chain at what's happening at port, what's the infrastructure there, how are things getting moved from these vessels and aggregated into supply chains, and obviously what does the processing stage and the food safety element look like as well. And so as much as buyers are able to support and understand the resource constraints of the FIPs they're working with, that's really going to help support this as well. Because if we can't get FIP material that is segregated at port or properly stored and caught and tracked and traced at ports to get to the facility and things, then we're not going to be able to provide traceability insurances all the way to the end, to the marketplace as well. And so understanding what the resource constraints that you might be facing within the FIPs that you buy from and how you could potentially support improving those constraints, whether it's financially or through collaboration of other means, I think that would be very helpful as well. And lastly is just communicating with your FIPs and saying this is something you want, saying this is the next step. This is what we see as the next evolution and maturation of FIPs around the world is traceable material and isolated FIP product hitting shelves. And unless FIPs are being told by the buyers that this is what they want and this is their expectation, that slow burn is never going to start in the first place. So I think across all of those layers, I think there's a lot of different ways that buyers can start impacting this.
I wanted to talk about all the information and data that's going to be generated by this partnership, but it's been perfectly put to us by Anna Justel, and I'm going to publish this question. Hopefully this should come onto the screen. And I'm not sure it's showing yet, so I'm just going to read it out. I think it's a good one for you, Kristin. Anna asks, what SPS information will be shown on fisheryprogress.org and how will it be displayed? Will it be integrated into the new version of the site that is planned for June of this year?
I'll take that one. And Anna, thanks for being so on top of it with the website redesign. I appreciate that you even knew the dates. Then the answer is no, we're not planning to include this information on the Fishery Progress relaunch this summer, partly because this partnership and the pilot work is only just getting up and running now. But our intention is, yes, our intention is to do that as soon as there's readiness and as soon as we've sort of developed the enough interest and engagement in this work that absolutely we want to highlight the SPS certification on a FIPS profile so that it can be easily recognized by buyers. So that's in development, but hopefully coming soon. We'd be very excited. We're very excited to do that and to really showcase FIPs that take on this work and give them more visibility, because it's really exciting. So yeah, we will get there, and we're excited to make that shift to the website when it's time.
Thank you, Kristin. I'm now going up to the top of all the questions we've received, and I think this is a good one to take next. So I've just approved it, and it's to do with FIP graduation. Must the certification step, I'm bridging a little bit here, must the certification step be MSc or are other schemes accepted?
Oh, thanks for that question. And I realized when I saw this pop up that I should have made this clear in my presentation. We absolutely, Fishery Progress is agnostic to the end goal of a FIP. A FIP can be moving towards any certification that it chooses to. We selected, and the community really selected, MSc to be the backbone of Fishery Progress because at that time it felt like the most well recognized and used backbone for measuring fishery progress. So it is solely our backbone. We don't promote MSc as an end goal for FIPs. A FIP can move towards any series of different end goals. So I hope that's helpful. And I wanted also to mention I wanted to clarify that Fishery Progress right now is only for wild capture fisheries. It does not include aquaculture for a whole host of reasons. And we certainly are open to the idea of including aquaculture improvement projects in the future, but right now the website is limited to wild capture.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, that, isn't it? That was from Peter. Does the platform only address wild caught species, or is there inclusivity for aquaculture? Very interesting question. Kristin, there was another one for you, which I think you could probably answer very quickly, which was about policy. I think this is in reference to your social policies are these policy available for reference? I think that was to do with, are your social policies available?
Yeah, it sure is. And everything is on our website. It should be very easy to find on our website. I will flag though that the social policy, and I think this is going to be a really interesting couple of years for us. Since the policy has been live for a few years now, we're looking towards a revision of the social responsibility policy. So we'll be starting off our social responsibility lead, Jamie Padilla, will be starting off discussion groups later this year around sort of key elements that have cropped up around the social policy. So you can find all the documentation on the website, just flag that we will be entering into a revision of the social policy over the next year and a half, with an intended launch of a new revised social policy in 2026, really based on all of the deep learning we've done since the policy launched in 2021. So that was a longer answer to the question, but.
Super, thank you. I'm going to move to a question from Scott Zimmerman. Scott asks, will an SPS audit be a requirement for a FIP? Is the entire seafood processing standard applicable for FIPs?
I can answer the first part of the question. Again, right now, because we are in very early pilot phases and exploration of this partnership, Fishery Progress won't be requiring an SPS audit for fisheries on the website. We will be promoting those that do take on this extra piece of work and giving them additional visibility and recognition to buyers. But at this stage, no, we're not changing the requirements on Fishery Progress. But maybe David, if you want to talk about the SPS standard itself.
Yeah, thanks. And I think it's important to mention as well, like GSA's goal here has never been to add in requirements or rules or reporting elements for FIPs. Our goal here was through our conversations, understood that there's challenges providing full-scale traceability and kind of independent market access for FIP material. So all we're really trying to do here is extend the supply chain for FIPs and really make the story a little bit longer of how the improvement's happening. We have no intention of trying to rewrite the rules of what a FIP is and isn't, and where that story starts and ends and things like that. But to the second question here, yes, I think the way we see it is, as long as a FIP is being moved through a plant that's capable of passing an SPS audit, then it's absolutely applicable for the standard. When we looked into the reporting elements from a FIP that would need to be included, beyond the standard traceability elements for wild caught material in SPS, it's really just adding in a FIP ID number, kind of those public reporting elements that are on FIPs on fisheryprogress.org, as well as a vessel list, which, as Kristen has mentioned, more and more FIPs are starting to add in. And so as they start to mature in their reporting elements, they're going to become more capable of passing through an SPS audit. So, as Kristen mentioned, the more mature ones are probably more likely to fit this pilot assessment early on. But as it catches on, I think these traceability reporting elements will become more widespread as well. So yes, as long as the plant is capable of passing the audit and the FIP material is providing the requisite traceability data upon receipt to that site, then it's completely applicable.
Thanks, David. We have questions coming in asking if more questions, are the slides going to be available? And yes, the session is being recorded, and the recording will feature the slides, so will be made available to all attendees and registrants for those who have not been able to join today. Kristen, we have a question here on who is accredited to undertake a third-party FIP review. Let me just publish that one.
I'm not going to be able to answer that with all the specific details, but we have a set of criteria listed on the website, and we have a list of people who have passed the set of criteria that's published on our website. So if you want to know more details, I'm happy to post a link to finding out more about how to become an accredited, or not accredited, that's not the right word, an approved auditor.
Okay, we still have more questions coming in. I think I'm capturing them all. Dave Parker has joined and asks, well, thanks guys, very interesting developments. Do you have a view on how this might allow FIPs to integrate and align with the global dialogue on seafood traceability standards? Let me publish that.
I can probably take this one.
Yeah, go for it, David.
Perfect. Yeah, great question. So the statement from GSA would be the SPS standard is written to align with GS1 reporting requirements, and GDST is also written to align with GS1 reporting requirements. So by that element, SPS is aligned with the GDST reporting requirements, though we are not developing a standard that's directly in line, but they're using the same GS1 data reporting elements. So we're both working towards the same end goal. So by that system, then any FIPS that would be passed through an SPS audit would, in theory, be aligning with the data elements of GDST. We're not conducting that assessment as part of SPS, so that assurance would not come out of it. But just understanding that the GS1 reporting elements and the GDST are relative mirrors of each other in many ways, so that SPS does align with all of the same traceability key data elements. So by entering a FIP through it, you would also be getting that level of assurance as well. So indirectly, yes.
I think the next question follows on nicely, actually, by Amanda. Let's just approve this one. What are the traceability and segregation requirements do FIPs have at the fishery level to ensure integrity of the products across the supply chain? There we go, just published now.
Do you want to take that one, Kristen, or do you want me to?
So FIPs on fishery progress don't have any requirements. So David, I think this is maybe more about as it relates to the SPS, what that would mean, how that would shift things.
Got it. Yeah. So that's the whole idea here is we're trying to add in traceability elements to the FIP profile here. So without listing them all right now, on SPS, we have a number of wild capture data elements that get for any product that gets put through. So a lot of the things you would expect to see. So tonnage, species, area code of capture, gear, all of those things. And then at the fishery level, also looking from the FIP side about that FIP ID number, vessel list, things like that. The wrinkle that we've discovered and where we do need to be putting a little bit of pressure on FIPs to start meeting requirements to get in through an SPS audit would be segregated material. So making sure that FIP material, when it's landed, is completely separate and traceable compared to non-FIP material. We've learned that there will be ports around the world where certain vessels are participating in a FIP and certain ones aren't, and they're all landing at the same dock. And oftentimes that's where the traceability gets lost as these products get mixed. So if anything, I'd say that's the traceability element that fisheries participating in FIPs need to be starting to think about in order to participate in this pilot process, would be making sure that you have independently segregated FIP material to pass through the audit.
So that is a key point for the pilots then, David. Segregation,
yes, for sure.
Segregation, yeah. And this is a big step change, no?
Yes, no, it's definitely a big step. And I think as Kristen mentioned, this is what we see as part of the maturation of FIPs moving forward, is starting to make that on the water progress and seeing changes in, whether it's environmental or social outcomes on the water. A key next step in intervention is to start isolating that material so that all of the good work being done in that FIP can get carried through the supply chain and recognized.
Super, thank you. I see I missed one from Scott, but it's a very specific question, Kristen, to do with an actual risk assessment and particular social clauses So I think probably that one is for you to follow up with Scott directly afterwards. Do you think I'm right in concluding in that way?
I'm happy to follow up, Scott. It sounds like, yeah, that would be a great conversation for you to have with our social responsibility team. I will share, though, that in terms of our social responsibility policy and risk assessments, it's still in really early stages because, like I was saying, some major learning that we've had over the course of the last year and a half is that our timelines were fast and FIPs needed more time, more capacity, additional funding to complete them. So many FIPs right now have extensions in meeting those requirements. So we only have at this stage 7 risk assessments on fishery progress, and you're welcome to take a look at those. I think you can filter directly for FIPs that have risk assessments, and again, we can chat one-on-one to give you more information about kind of what that process has looked like and so on. So we're really more than happy to connect, and I think at the end of this webinar, we'll have our email addresses, so please feel free to reach out.
Great. We have some other questions about, do we work in specific parts of the world, and to do with helping raise capital, working capital, and so forth. Again, I think these are questions that we will follow up directly with the person who, the people who have asked. Open question to the team at this point. Is there a question that you think I've missed that we should put on the screen? No, I think then it looks like we've covered all the ones that have come in. I'll just give another few seconds in case some late posters. No, so I will ask my colleagues if they can give me control of the screen again, and we'll draw the Q&A session. I think we should draw it to a close. Contact details for our 2 excellent presenters are on the screen now. And as we said earlier, if we didn't get to your question, we will do our best to follow up with you directly. Next week, we are, of course, all looking forward to the Barcelona Seafood Show, and we hope to welcome many of you to our happy hour at the Global Seafood Alliance stand, which is 5F201. That's Tuesday next week at 4 o'clock. We have our stakeholder update meeting, and we're delighted that FishChoice will be joining us again. That is on Wednesday, 12 o'clock in room CC 1.1, which is upstairs at the FIRA and can take a while to get to. Just a word of advice. We will also be serving a light lunch after that event, together with our friends from Sea Alliance, starting at 1 o'clock. On the same day, at 4:15 in room CC 5.3, I think I'm right in saying, we have 2 Global Seafood Alliance colleagues, Amy McGann and Melanie Siggs, who will be joining a discussion panel on crew well-being on fishing vessels with the title, How Can the Market Provide Assurance of Best Practice and Support Change? And our final reminder on events is for the Responsible Seafood Summit, which this year is in St Andrews, Scotland. Wonderful venue, wonderful seafood, and we forecast this to be our biggest summit ever. So thank you again to our presenters. Great job. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for those who have posted questions. We will now close the webinar.